This morning, we are going to talk to Jen Garrick, who is relatively new in post at Rosehill, that wonderful theatre, kind of on the outskirts of Whitehaven. Jen's arrived there quite recently, see what she's doing, find out a bit about her. Simon Whalley, who of course runs Evan. It's the 8th open studios that Evan have run, which commence very soon. And Simon's going to tell us a bit about that. And we're going to look at the very nice brochure that's been produced for that. Matt Soulby has pulled together the Kirkby Lonsdale Poetry Festival. I think this is the second time. Is that right, Matt? Yeah. So that's coming up next weekend, this coming weekend. And Matt's going to tell us a bit about that and who's on and how it's all come together. And then, as I said, Chris is going to talk to us a little bit about the training offer that the network is going to offer as well. Just to reiterate, this call is recorded. So if you miss it or there's something on it that you want to see again or tell someone about it, it goes onto YouTube, our YouTube channel, usually by the Monday of the following week. And if you need captions, there's a caption tool on Zoom which should help you with captions as well. That is the plan for this morning. Before I carry on though, Kate Parry is our chair. Hello, Kate.
Good morning. It's great to see everybody. There's always a nervous moment actually as to whether anybody would reappear after the summer. So it's really good to see so many people. I just want to say one thing, and that is that we're on LinkedIn now. CACN is on LinkedIn. So please go to LinkedIn and share it, follow us, help make some noise, because it feels to me that that is where a lot of good work can be done in terms of promoting your work and advertising what the network is up to. So yeah, please go there and follow us. And Amy, in typical fashion, has just put it in the chat there for you to go straight to. Thanks.
Thank you, Kate. But this whole, just to sort of throw ahead to the September the 20th meeting, actually, which is in 2 weeks' time, spurred on by a great idea from Colin Glover. We're actually going to use that whole time of that meeting on the 20th to explore the whole kind of murky subject of social media. Where are we now? Which platforms are worth being on? Which platforms are perhaps not worth being on anymore? Who uses what, particularly from an arts and culture perspective as well? And, you know, what's the most effective way of communicating what you're doing and networking as well? So the 20th of September, that meeting on the 20th of September, someone's going to come on who knows a bit about this kind of stuff to share some thoughts, probably do a short presentation, and then basically throw it open to the floor as well to see just what we should all be using as far as social media is concerned. Yeah, it's evolving industry, if I can put it like that, all the time, as we all know. Some of you will be well into all sorts of platforms. Some of you will only be dabbling. You know, we've only just started that LinkedIn account. But anyway, 20th of September, if you fancy joining that conversation, see you then, and it'll be a good chat, I think. And thanks once again to Colin for just kind of provoking that as a thought for us. Right, so let's go to Rosehill. I don't reckon everybody on this call has been to Rosehill. I have a few times, but for those of you that haven't, it's a really interesting building that's had quite a lot of history. It's just on the outskirts of Whitehaven in West Cumbria. And Jen Garrick arrived there as the new boss or co-boss about 2 months ago, I think. So Jen, this is a chance, perhaps 15 minutes or so, to say hello, tell us a bit about yourself, and also tell us a bit about Rosehill, where it's going, what it's up to at the moment. So it's lovely to have you here. I met you for the first time in the flesh, I think, last night at Florence, and it was great to have a chat. So welcome, and tell us just a bit about yourself, first of all. Where have you come from, and what brought you to West Cumbria?
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I have loitered on a couple of these calls already just to see what the crack was, but really pleased to be here. So yeah, I'm Jen Garrick. I'm the relatively new exec director and joint CEO of Rosehill in Whitehaven, or just outside of Whitehaven, technically, in Moresby. I share CEO duties with our creative director, Dan Whitehouse, who's been here for a few years and has been an amazing guide and introduction to the sort of cultural ecosystem of West Cumbria. So where to begin? 2 months. I wish it was only 2 months. Sadly, my window of being able to say that I'm new is getting smaller and smaller every day. I've actually been here now coming close to 4 months, almost to the day, in fact, which has gone by in an absolute flash, because there is such a lot to learn about Rosehill as an organisation, the people, the communities, but also about the area in general, because I'm not just new to Rosehill, I'm also new to West Cumbria. So I moved here just a little bit before starting the job. I gave myself 2 weeks to acclimatise. I moved here from West Yorkshire, actually, and I'm originally from Lincoln in Lincolnshire. So sort of steadily working my way up and over to the West Coast. So yeah, everything is kind of new to me. The organisations, the people, the infrastructure. So there's been a lot to get to grips with, but it's been an amazing first few months of getting to meet so many of you and have really interesting conversations.
And what were you doing in West Yorkshire before you came to Rosehill?
So I was the marketing communications director for an arts organisation in Wakefield, actually, called the Art House. Another similarly sized, quite visual arts focused organisation, that had galleries and a cafe and artist studios and that kind of thing. But very similar in terms of where Rosehill's at and where the Art House was at when I joined, on a journey towards really embodying more of a sort of radical civic arts organisation sort of position, rather than being a gallery or a theatre. So that's the sort of transition for me, I guess, from that side of the country to this, but in many ways still plugging away at the same goals.
All right, and tell us. I mean, you've been 3 or 4 months. You said you've been there, and a lot of that time, no doubt, is spent listening to people, talking to people, just trying to absorb where things are at and who does what and where places are.
Yeah.
What's your initial kind of feelings about what you want to do with Rosehill and what sort of direction Rosehill needs to go on to be a success?
Well, so I think I'm joining the organisation at a really interesting time. As I said, Dan, my joint CEO, has been here for a few years, and really the organisation has been shifting in that time, sort of an evolutionary journey towards away from being a theatre. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but there's been a sort of diversification of what the organisation does and where and how it engages with our communities, which are diverse. So it's very much been about taking what we do and the ethos of what we do and what we believe outside of the building, and really meeting people where they are. So we're doing a lot more work now, sort of embedded within communities, rather than sort of drawing people up the hill into our building. So for me, I'm joining at the point at which that work has already begun and is in a state of sort of maturation. You learn new things all the time about that kind of work and about your communities, and you sort of deepen those relationships and that trust. So we're already on that journey. My role really now, coming into the organisation, is to ensure that we have the kind of resilience and sustainability to keep doing that in the long term. We've been very fortunate to have support from the Arts Council and Sellafield, some very substantial support, as well as other kind of trust and foundation stuff, which has been amazing. But of course, we can't rely on that. And Rosehill does have this amazing capacity as a theatre, to be a sort of, generating our own revenue as well. So my role really is to find a way for us to support ourselves more financially as an arts organisation, and to do that in a way that aligns with our artistic vision. I think so often those two things are at odds in creative and cultural organisations, and I understand why. It's not easy to follow the money whilst also following your values, but that's really my objective, is for us to sort of build out that half of the organisation as a business, essentially, so that we're able to better do the work that we do and continue to work with our communities in the long term.
Okay, and Whitehaven Harbour Fest, is that, which I know happened last weekend, I think it was.
Yes.
I wasn't there, but I know it was a sunny day. I was at a football match at Brunton Park watching Paul Simpson's last game in charge of Carlisle United, if I'm honest with you. But is that a good example of the sort of thing, that Rosehill is, that under your leadership you want to get more involved in and work in the community more, as in the way that you've just discussed?
Absolutely. I think
Tell us how you sort of impacted on the Harbour Fest, from a Rosehill perspective.
Well, so Harbourfest is programmed by Rosehill. So it's a partnership with Whitehaven Harbour Commissioners, but the creative activity that takes place, the programme for the day, a good chunk of the staffing and the volunteers and all that kind of stuff, the big vision, was really led by the team at Rosehill, working in collaboration with lots of partners across the region, which was really amazing. So for us, Harbourfest is a really great example, actually, of the kind of work that we want to do. Lots of what we do is very small, doesn't really even warrant a press release, because it's very direct. It's one-to-one with people, or in small groups. We're not looking to shine a spotlight on that. But Harbourfest and events like that, big scale events like that, are an amazing opportunity for us to support the development of Whitehaven as a place, and to really support how people feel about the place that they live. So for us, that kind of work is really important. It's always a stretch. Anybody that's ever done a festival of any scale knows that it's a stretch, and you can't feel your feet at the end of the day. And it's a huge deal, no matter what size of organisation you are and how much funding you have, because you're always pushing the limit. Always. But that's what we want to do with events like Harbourfest, is push the envelope a little bit, and to present sort of the community back to itself, in many ways. It's a really exciting platform to showcase what's going on in the area, but it's also a really wonderful opportunity to surprise and delight the people of Whitehaven and beyond. I was speaking to people who'd brought their granddaughter over from Lancashire for the weekend to come to the festival. We had people coming down from Maryport, and so we were really drawing people into Whitehaven. But those moments are a really exciting opportunity for us to present a kind of creative or cultural experience that you might be able to find 2 or 3 examples of every week in a big city, but in a place like this, those opportunities are few and farther between. So yeah, that's absolutely a sort of jewel in the crown, I suppose, of what we want to be able to offer to the area.
Looks like Tina had a good time there, in chat. Does it matter, though, that, say, the burghers of Whitehaven don't necessarily register the Rosehill connection into making Harbourfest what it is? Does that matter to you, that people should sort of see that the Rosehill input into something like that?
It does matter, and that's also, I think, a sort of transition for us. We don't want to. It's a delicate thing with these sorts of things. We don't want to sort of stake a claim and own it in some sort of way that kind of throttles the energy out of it, because it is a collaboration, it's a partnership. But yes, of course, you run an event called Harbourfest on the harbour in partnership with harbour commissioners. That people are going to sort of make assumptions as to who's been involved. So for us, yeah, it's really important that for next year and beyond, that we highlight the work that we're doing as Rosehill, to ensure that people that it supports the other work that we're doing. My work in terms of building us out sort of to be more financially robust, bringing in different kinds of funding, all that sort of stuff. But also it's important that that when we say Rosehill, people know who you mean and what you mean. And at the moment, it does still require, in certain pockets, a little bit of explanation. And when you get sort of out of the boundaries of Cumbria, I think even more explanation still. So that's really a journey, I think, that we're on. Is we've done the foundational work of really repositioning the organisation, and that's going to continue. Now it's about, making sure that people know that we're behind some of this stuff and why we do what we do, so that they want to come and work with us more and do interesting, slightly bonkers things on a regular basis.
And I suppose what you mentioned earlier, I think, the phrase "up the hill," which is, do you want to just describe, Rose, for people who don't know it or have not been there, just give us a thumbnail sketch of Rosehill Theatre.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because
If
it's got
anyone comes,
challenges as well as opportunities, hasn't it? If I can be honest.
it does, it absolutely does. If anyone gets a chance to pick up our latest brochure, there is actually an aerial view on the back. That's our building. You can see we are surrounded by farmland, essentially. Our nearest neighbours, other than the nursing home and the children's nursery, are cows. A great many of those, and a few sheep as well. So as you're driving along the A595 into Whitehaven, before you get there, sort of parallel to Parton is down the hill and towards the coast on your right, and there you literally turn up Rosehill, left up the hill to get to us, and you need to slam your foot on the accelerator and stick it in a low gear to get up the hill. It's quite steep. There's no path, so you can't safely walk up to us. That's just the truth of it, which is challenging. But then you do sort of arrive on a level bit and turn left into our car park and our building. The heart of that building is a Grade 2 listed theatre. That's been there since 1959 and was built by the gentleman Mickey Seckers, who owned Rosehill House as well, which is now the nursing home at the end of our driveway. He essentially built a theatre in his back garden, and was beloved locally by the great and the good, as being an excellent venue for particularly classical music and as well as some theatre. In 2017, the building was extended. So there's quite a modern extension that wraps around the original theatre. And that really needs some refreshing now, I think, that's more to reflect the journey that we've been on. But we are essentially a venue that you get to in a car or a taxi or a coach. You can't safely walk here very easily, although occasionally some people do, and very intrepid cyclists have attempted the hill on occasion, which is very impressive. So it's a challenge for us as an organisation. We could very easily be seen, and I know that we are seen by certain people, as being a sort of elitist theatre up on the hill. This sort of position over Whitehaven was not intentional, but does create a barrier, which is why we are so active in working outside of our building now, because we don't expect people to come to us. We know that we need to go to them if we want to engage them in interesting conversations about culture. But likewise, there are a great many people that I think could very easily come to us and enjoy what we do here as well. So for us, it's about sort of balancing those two things so that we're getting the most out of this gift of a building. And it is a gift. It's a wonderful space, but making sure that we don't become sort of walled in in our own sort of little idyll up the hill.
Amy was just asking in chat there, has Rosehill ever put on shuttle buses to Whitehaven for anything or for any reason?
So we've experimented. We actually did a park and ride as part of Harbourfest so that people could benefit from our parking up here, travel down to the festival, and then, but likewise, if they happen to be Whitehaven residents that had walked to the festival, they could hop on the bus, come up and see the Bruce Asbestos takeover that we had, an artist takeover in the building at the same time, and then get back on the bus. For us, building back after COVID, it's been really quite challenging to have enough capacity to be able to offer that sort of thing. I would love for us to be able to do that, but at the moment we open, in terms of being open to the general public, it's when we have performances or events on. So there's a real it's quite ad hoc for us at the moment, and that's part of this transition for me. Is I'd like us to be able to get to a stage where we're maybe able to open 2-3 days a week and the bar's open, you can come get a coffee, and then we can start to look at really supporting how people get up to us more easily as well. As well as sort of doing other pop-ups elsewhere and continue to sort of expand that work.
Okay, last one for me. If anyone's got any questions, by the way, pop them into chat or stick your hand up. What's coming up, Jen? Why should we come to Rosehill?
Oh my goodness, it's there's a reason I've got the brochure here. It's because the list of things going on is so long, I can't even begin to tell you. we've got so many things going on. So at the moment, Stepping Out, an amateur dramatic performance, is happening in the building. So a 4-night run. So happening again tonight and tomorrow. Still tickets left if anyone fancies it. I've heard nothing but raves so far. So well worth checking that out. We're also doing quite a lot of screenings of National Theatre, Royal Opera House, things like Marriage of Figaro, Prima Facie, things like that are also coming up at screenings in our building. We've got films like Treasure later on in the season. We've got a Paddington-a-thon playing all 3 Paddington movies in each weekend, over 3 weekends. There will be marmalade sandwiches available, and lots more besides, lots of comedy, lots of theatre, lots of music, and hopefully a few surprises in there as well. I'm just having conversations at the moment about a Christmas market that we would love to host, which will coincide with Andre Rieu's Christmas performance that we're also screening. So loads going on. But what I'd really love to say to everybody in the group is that we're also really open to hosting new and interesting things outside of the sort of traditional performances and things that we have here. So if you want to run a craft group, a book club, album listening night once a month, you know, I'd really love to hear from people, because we can put on lots of things, but I would love to see our program really blossom with things being coordinated by the community within our facilities. So I'd love to hear from people if they have any ideas. You know,
great invitation. Christine, you just put a question to chat. Do you want to come off mute and just ask your question?
Hello, it's really lovely to meet you.
Hi.
I remember Rosehill because I used to, when I used to live in Cleator as a kid, and it was the first ever theatre, and it ran a youth theatre for about 3 years in the 80s. So I used to go there then, and it was my first experience of theatre, and then I went on to be an actor, and then I went away, and then I finally came back. So I'm really delighted to hear you talking so kind of passionately about it. I was just wondering, when I first came back, I did approach Rosehill a couple of times about, I was applying for Arts Council funding to make work up here. It was COVID at the time, so I don't think it was ideal, but is there, I did write this in the chat, I'm just wondering, is there opportunity for partnership with professional artists, or is it more like you want to support, you know, when you talk about craft nights and book clubs and stuff, that feels like more of a community or you know, amateur thrust. I was wondering if there's a space there for for professional artists who are local as well.
Oh, absolutely. That's another strand of what we've been doing that I haven't had a chance to really talk about, is very much the kind of sector development is a really key thing for us, and creating opportunities and lending our weight, whatever weight we have, to help artists and creative practitioners in the region to sort of experiment and to try new things, to draw in funding, because you know, you can say that we're attached to the project. Obviously it has to be right, it has to fit. There's lots of kind of chemistry stuff that has to go on there to make sure that those kinds of projects work. But from my perspective, and I'm certain from Dan's as well, we absolutely want to see and work with more local creative practitioners and professionals. So yeah, absolutely, that's not off the table at all. It's all up for discussion at this stage. And yeah, if it was during COVID, I can see that, you know, it was a pretty rough time for everybody, and there probably wasn't the capacity or the bandwidth to be able to do that justice. But we're in a stronger position now. Still, you know, like we all are, struggling. But yeah, absolutely, reopen those conversations if you've got ideas. We would love to hear them.
All right, Christine, thanks for that question. Jonathan, if it's a quick one, go for it.
Yes, certainly. Norman Nicholson was a great fan of Rosehill, incidentally, and you may have noticed at Egremont yesterday, some of the young artists. Well, I think one was a young artist, so the other two, I think, were artists of a certain age. But they were very keen on Norman Nicholson. He has written a certain amount about Rosehill. I'll send you through the references. He was also talking about artistic elites and so forth.
Yeah. That would be really interesting to hear. I think that's something I'm really passionate about is talking more about the sort of roots of this place, and there's a real kind of there's a really interesting story to tell about Rosehill. I sort of feel like at some point that there's probably a BBC, 2 documentary about it or something, or a drama, or I don't know. We've had all sorts. David Bowie and Judi Dench was here once, and like the whole thing there's such an interesting sort of amount to unpick. But I'm sort of drawing together some of these. Oh, so and so was really a fan of that, and such really loved that place, and they came to see Button Moon when they were 10 20 years ago, all of that stuff. So I'm trying to knit some of that together into a sense of a sort of tapestry of the history of Rosehill, because it's been a lot recorded, but a lot of it is very anecdotal still. So, yeah,
and loads more to come, I'm sure, as well. Jonathan, thank you for that. Jen, thanks for that. Thanks for telling us about that and where sort of your vision and where the direction of Rosehill is at the moment. We'll watch with interest. And I wish you success and good luck with it as well. It's a really important part of the infrastructure of West Cumbria, the cultural infrastructure of West Cumbria.
Yeah.
So good luck with it as well. Thank you ever so much.
Thanks, Tom. Much appreciated. Thanks.
Right, let's move to the Evan Open Studio Trail now. I was at Florence last night, and there was, I think, 4 artists from the Evan Open Studio were on display there, and a beautiful catalogue as well, which is an online version as well as a real version. So Amy is going to pull up this lovely flickable through version of the catalogue. And Simon Whalley, who's run Evan for many years, is going to talk to us about what the trail promises this year and where it's taking place across Cumbria as well. So Simon, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Tom. Can you hear me okay? Yeah.
Yes.
Grand. Thank you, folks. Thanks for a bit of time just to talk about the Evan Open Studios event and art trail. For those of you that don't know, very briefly, Evans, we were just a sort of an idea that a few of us had in Penrith about 7 years ago, 2016. We started with an exhibition, got 50 artists together, and from that created the network, Evan, which now has 160 artists in it across the north of Cumbria. And we very much collaborate with Green Door in the south so that we don't overlap with things. So we all know September is a pretty good month for sales, for artists getting the work out there, people visiting the county. So we tend to always have our open studios and art trail first 2 weeks, 3 weekends, and then Green Door have theirs at the end. And there are a number of other arts trails on in September. So great time to get out there. You can probably see from the brochure there, orange is our colour. So look out for orange. There's a bit of a guide to sort of a bit of intro, really. We're a voluntary organisation, just the 3 of us as directors, and then we pay 4 freelancers to do social media and work for us. And a guy called Martin Reed's produced this brochure, mainly funded through Westmoreland and Furness. They give us we have an SLA with them, and we deliver the open studios as part of that. So based from Eden Valley, but as you can see, if you just flip to the next page with the map, a small sort of reach up into Brampton and around Carlisle, and then along the west coast a little bit, and right away across, obviously, to Florence. And we've worked closely with artists on the west coast artists. Maggie, who's got a gallery in Cockermouth, who's part of the network, and is there, I think it's number 6 there. So, our remit really is North Cumbria. Primarily, though, we set about from Eden Valley is where we were based from. And obviously, with the authorities now splitting down the county down the middle, that makes for other challenges, etc. But 21 venues this year, about 60 artists involved, possibly a few more. We're very much about enabling people to do it their way, if you like. So it's an open studios and art trail. That means you can have your open studio at home. You can have galleries are included if they want to be included. And other community-based artist groups like Chili's, Blue Jam are included with the work they're doing. And it's really up to the artists themselves to define when they're open. So if you just kind of flip on to the next page for us, Amy, that's grand. This is the format, pretty much the format of most open studios brochures I see here. We've worked hard over 7 or 8 years to try and clarify that, be as clear as possible as we can with what's happening, where the trails are, an image for the artist that the artist chooses that fits in there. One of the things we've definitely worked on is the little piece at the bottom. So we've had 4,000 of these brochures printed, and they sit around, probably have a shelf life of, I'd say, 6 or 7 months. So we kind of have that piece about where people can be found after the art trail. Because quite often with art trails, you can find that people find out about the work and the artist, and then the art trail disappears. So, you know, very short space of time. So we go for that 2 weeks. But as I say, it's up to folk to open for when they want to do. And we try and highlight this, that every studio has different opening hours. But some folk do believe that every studio is open all the time. Let's say a number of venues, just simply numbered. We tend to mix that up a bit. If you kind of flip onto the next page, for me, please, Amy, that's grand. Some have just one artist at them. You're now looking up at Brampton there in the St. Peter's Church. Venue 3 has about 11 artists. And that kind of notion really works for artists quite often, because it's quite often hard to staff and be open all the time if you're a voluntary artist. Or we tend to work on the sort of basis of calling artists working or part-time working rather than amateur or professional. We try not to make that distinction. It's for the artists really to connect with the public, and that's what we try and do and help them do that. And then to see where that goes, really, not to get in the way of that as an organisation. So whatever works, and in Brampton, it definitely works for them at St. Peter's Church to have, I think there's 11 artists, kind of linking onto the next page. And these flip brochures, you know, once you've got a PDF, you can, this is all free. You can have any brochure can be out there like in this format. We've got physically 4,000 of the brochures, which are pretty much all gone this year. It's been amazing. We've got them out, try and get them out about a month beforehand, and then ask artists to distribute them. And Hayden, one of our artists, he distributes about 1,000 with his wife. So they're out and about. And we've found out that 4,000 is about the number that goes out. But you can see some artists have their work at 2 places. It depends how they're going. And we tried to just really be flexible with that and not sort of determine too much where the artist or how the artist should display, etc. Let them work in the groups that work for themselves. And, you know, say St. Peter's Church has had a long-standing reputation at Castle Garrick there. Okay, if you could flip on for us there, Amy. Cheers. Again, a mixture of galleries. So that's still with St. Peter's Church, linking into the Fountain Gallery in Brampton. And if you can move on again for me, thanks. And just this real notion, all the images we've included are by local artists. So we're trying to give, you know, visitors and local, again, a bit of a feel with that, the brochure, try and make it as professional as possible. First 2 years, we didn't have funding. We didn't quite have the brochure level that we wanted. We've kind of got to that, as I say, through Westmoreland and Furness's funding of the, as I say, part of an SLA with targets there about how many artists we involve. So that kind of works well, I think. And as I say, Martin puts the brochure together, which I think's kind of lovely feel to it, really, physically and online. And we can put the link in so that people can share this afterwards. If you could flip on again for me, Amy, cheers. So again, we're kind of moving now towards the west coast there. Chris is right on the coast there, a solo artist, just opening for short periods of times, but that's what works for him. Maggie's got her shop in Cockermouth there. And then, as you said, Tom, Natalie and Claire and a couple of others are based at Florence Mine. So it's great we're getting involved with some of the venues. And it's great that they are hosting, and, you know, places like Rosehill could host in the future. So I think that kind of workout, that obviously is what works for the local artists and the local venues. And I think that therefore works all round for both parties, really. Could move on again, cheers. If you just keep going now, Amy, just keep flicking through. People are getting a flavour of it. I can't really cover all the artists, but Dorothy there, we've just gone past. Dorothy's just off the A66, and sometimes people zoom past her. So I'm giving Dorothy a mention. Dorothy's in her 80s. She's been a stalwart artist for this in Eden. She ran Weatherwick's Pottery way back when. So if you zoom in past and you see an orange arrow, perhaps just do a nice turn round and go and visit her down a little lane there. She likes to be at home there in her studio. And as I say, other multiple venues, you know, the guys get together at Eamont Hall there in venue 11. So I think there's about 6 or 7 artists there. And that works well. It's really just trying to get this balance. There's a mention of Hayden there on number 12. So Hayden goes out of his way, and fantastic. Each year, he probably spends about 3 weeks with his wife delivering to loads of local venues 1,000 brochures. You know, these are sort of things that keep the arts and culture in the area moving and working, but nobody probably knows that they're happening, and it's all done in a voluntary capacity. So we like to give Hayden a bit of a mention there, you know. These are the ones, again, around Penrith. As I say, we've got quite a basis. There's Broom Hall there, a number of artists just out from Broom Hall. And you kind of, this notion of the sort of mini trails, with 3 weekends, you can probably focus on 4 or 5 artists on one afternoon and go to an area. So, you know, the open studios up in Scotland, there has massive mini trails. We have sort of smaller mini trails. And then we're kind of closing in onto Penrith now with Lizzie. I'm actually in Penrith. Lizzie's 80 plus, and she has an artist studio just up the road from here on Arthur Street in Penrith. And then we're kind of, you saw on the map at the start, we're kind of focused right in. There's quite a number of events and spaces in Penrith itself. Blue Jam, Jilly's on the call. Blue Jam do some fantastic work. She's got 2 venues there with all the different groups that she works with. We've handed over our 4A gallery to them for free to try and make that work. Myself and Gwen have got our Wilder Clay gallery in Penrith. And if you kind of move on to just towards the end now for us, thanks.
That's great, Simon. Just as we draw to a close, because time is against us. Monique, have you've got a question for Simon?
Yes, I'm just looking on the website because I'm interested to visit a few, but there seems to be there doesn't seem to be a map, and when you click on one on the artist, there is no address as well. So how do you find out where to go?
It's all in the brochure there. So if you can click on
but how do I get a brochure?
You can either get a physical brochure or the online brochure. The online brochure is there. Just fire a click on our website. If you go to the Evan event.
Okay. Oh, yeah. You might want to put the brochure then on the website as well.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Is it? Oh, well, I couldn't find it.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Just one of the points to mention, Tom, we've kind of right at the back of the brochure there, we've put a £50 voucher now for 3 people who visit the most venues. So just for people as they go around to just get a signature from each venue. The orange wooden, so we're not using plastic, we've always used wooden art trail signs, the orange ones. And I would make a call out for everybody just to help us with a bit of social media, reposting and things. I think to help all individual artists through September, just about that kind of promoting all the artists, the open studios and art trail things that are happening in Cumbria.
That's a great idea. By the way, the brochure looks fantastic. Just remind us of the dates again, Simon, of when it's
7th.
on.
So we start tomorrow, 7th to the 22nd. So it's the first 2 weeks, the first 3 weekends. And then, as I say, Green Door, and obviously there's Alison's Trail as well, out in September as well. So there's quite a number of art trails, and I think we probably as Cumbria should do more to promote September's open studios across the whole.
There's almost a September thing, isn't there, that we could
for sure.
Branding or whatever.
Yeah.
That looks great. Alison's coming on next weekend actually to talk about the Round the Island art trail, which is good. Which I know is 2 weeks.
Could get Green Door on as well.
Yeah.
There at the end.
Yeah. Well, if they get in touch, we can do something. Thank you for sharing that. Good luck with it. I know it's a massive amount of work that goes into building this sort of network of events and the studio art trail. I shall certainly be getting around some of them, and I'm sure lots of other people as well. But to heed Simon's plea there, if you can help share the information so that everybody else gets to know about it as well, that'll be fantastic, and we can work as a network together to push it. Thank you, Simon. Good luck with it, and may the sun shine brightly on all the studios. Right, let's go from open studios to poetry in Kirkby Lonsdale. The lovely Matt Sowerby has pulled together a really great looking festival of poetry, which is coming our way very, very soon. So Matt, over to you. Amy will run through the slides, which you very kindly sent through. Tell us a bit about why we should get to Kirkby Lonsdale very soon to hear some great poetry.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks, Tom. Yeah, so my name's Matt Sowerby. I am 23. 2 years ago, I ran the first Kirkby Lonsdale Poetry Festival. Really on a shoestring. We found this little pot of money. Actually, the pot approached me and said, "Would you be up for running a poetry festival?" And we put this thing on, and it was 26 events in 2.5 days across 11 venues in the town. So really took over the town for that weekend. And people loved it. 100% of people said that they were likely or very likely to recommend the festival to someone else. our slogan, our selling point was some people don't think poetry is for them. We're here to prove them wrong. I didn't grow up in a house that had poetry on the shelves. I'm really interested in bringing more people into the art form. And because it was such a successful event, we thought we'd do it again. So this year we got some additional funding. We've got 4 times as much funding this time because Rathbones came on board. And we're putting on this event next weekend in Kirkby Lonsdale. Great. Amy, go to the next slide, please. Awesome. Yeah, that's so these are the kind of things that we do. You think poetry sounds a bit dry. We really try and, again, as bringing people into the art form, try and make it as vibrant and accessible as possible. So we have performances from some of the biggest names in the UK. We have free writing workshops all weekend with open mics, parades, panels, kids stuff. I'll get into it in a little bit. I should actually just add that I've just noticed that that's the wrong web address. So I will just write the correct one in because that is last year's. So there in the chat, KirkbyLonsdalePoetry.com rather than .co.uk. Brilliant. Next slide, please. Yeah, so I don't know how many of you have been to Kirkby Lonsdale. I love it. But it's a certain demographic, it's a certain feel. And it's really important to me as a young person to just have loads of young people at these events as well. And the way that we do that is that we ship them in. So this is the volunteer team arriving last year, and this is the approach that we're taking this year as well, is to open applications for young, talented people from diverse backgrounds to come and work at the festival, and then we provide camping for them at the festival. And most of them come as much for the scenery as they do for the poetry. Lots of people. There are very few poetry festivals with views like ours, and that's a real selling point for people. I should say that this, what you're looking at now, this kind of collage effect, one of the volunteers last year decided that they loved the experience so much that they were actually going to make a zine, this collage magazine, from all the pictures from the festival. So that's what this is. This is the volunteers arriving. Next slide, please, Amy. And yeah, so we've got these headline performers, but we've also got these open mics. Our open mic last year was our most popular event. So we're having 2 this year. We're also really interested in pushing definitions of what poetry is. So last year we had, at the open mic, we had Swerve and JD, who you might know. They're a rapper DJ duo from Barrow, who were our headliners at the open mic. Great. And yeah, next slide, please. And yeah, free workshops all weekend, like I said. So that's what you're seeing here. And also, Amy, please could go to the next slide as well.
I love Swerve and JD, by the way. They are fantastic.
Oh, that's so good. Such nice blokes as well. So yeah, free workshops all weekend.
Matt, Gina's just asking, are there still opportunities for young people to get involved with helping, or is that all sorted now?
So the application, that's kind of closed now, but obviously next weekend, if young people are wanting to come along, then we really encourage that. And it's not like these are I'd say the boundaries are sometimes porous. Sometimes the headliners will be like, oh, do you need some help moving some stuff, etc. People that are there often just pitch in. But yeah, it would be, if you know young people that would be interested in meeting other young people and being at some cool events, then yeah, please do let them know about the festival. Great. So yeah, so we this is a kind of collage of our headline events from last year. For poetry that, like I say, really did run on a shoestring, we got a pretty good lineup. So we had, for example, you can see on there Luke Kennard, who had just won the biggest poetry prize in the UK, the Forward Prize, and we also had Kim Moore, who was about to win that prize. And yeah, and we try and do fun things with it. So, for example, Luke Kennard, his book that won the Forward Prize was called Notes on the Sonnets, and it was poems responding to Shakespeare's sonnets. Not everyone's cup of tea. People have strong opinions about Shakespeare either way. So what we did was we got a local actor to dress up as Shakespeare, and then we got them to battle. And then we got the judges, we got the audience to judge who was better, Luke Kennard or Shakespeare. And that was good fun.
Who won?
Luke Kennard won. Luke Kennard's officially the best writer of all time now. Yeah, you heard it. You heard it here first. Decided that Kirkby Lonsdale. Yeah, I won't go. I love the lineup from last year, but I won't talk too much about it because we've got a new one this year. Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, and really trying to just get stuff out into the community. So last year we had a troupe of actors that went around the pubs and performed like kind of pop-up flash mob style plays. The version of that we have this year, we're working with Jane Davies, a different theatre director, and she is running 2 workshops where she will teach participants how to perform a piece of poetry in a theatrical way. She'll put them in a costume, and then on the Saturday they will parade around town and perform in these different locations, which will be really fun. Trying to bring some silliness in. There's too much seriousness in poetry, I believe. So yeah, that's what that is. Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah. So yeah, we've got 2 venues that we're using this year. We thought we'd simplify it from the 11. We've tried all the venues. We know which are the good ones. And so yeah, we're in the St. Mary's Church and the Methodist Church for all of our events this year. Yeah, and next slide again, please. And really trying to work with the local community as well, which is just my community. I've been living or working in Kirkby Lonsdale since I was 6, and so, for example, one of the hot topics in Kirkby Lonsdale has been Ruskin's View, which is a kind of a local landmark. It's this beautiful view over the valley that was actually closed off to local people and to visitors because it was unsafe, and there was a big fundraising campaign, and we got involved in that fundraising campaign and ran some fundraising events at the festival as well. Yeah, really trying to make this something that's by and for the community, as well as for all the amazing people that visit us as well. Okay, yeah, next slide, please. Great, and yeah, next slide again, please. Other stuff that happens, we have an event that is highlighting local talent called the Poetry Relay, where local poets will take turns performing 10-minute slots and then sign a piece of wood and hand it on to the next person. So that's what that is. Yeah, next slide, please. Busking around town. Yeah, and next slide again, please. And typewriter busking, which I'm sure some of you will come across as well. But there are people around town that you can go up to and say, I would like a poem about my dog, about my wife's birthday, which is tomorrow, and I've not gotten her anything yet, about, I don't know, candy floss, and the poet will have to write that for you. That's something that we did last year. That was really last time. That was really popular. So we're bringing that back as well. Okay. Yeah. Next slide again. Great. So that's Kirkby Lonsdale Poetry Festival. It's happening next weekend. And I suppose what I really love is if it's possible for any of you guys to come. You all know how difficult it is to put on big events, and it would be really lovely to have your support with it. And yeah, and kind of just I'll say just briefly some of the great names that we've got coming: Beth Train Brown was raised in a circus, is a fire breather as well as a poet. We've got Brogan Tyzak Carlin, who's a comedian as well. We've got people like Kaz Teague, who's as well as a very successful poet, also brings in music. We've got Ray, who is this weird, like creative performance artist who's just really silly as well. Like, again, bringing in the silliness. We've got local talent. We've got Rachel Mann, who's the Archbishop of Bolton.
Enough,
as
Matt.
well as
That's too much for a Friday morning almost. That's enough.
Stop.
It's
Stop
fantastic. It looks utterly fantastic. There's a lot of love for you in chat that you need to pick up on as well, because you've really pulled this together, Matt. And I mean, I know you're a poet yourself, and hopefully you'll be performing at your own festival at some way. So, are you performing at your own festival?
Yeah, I'm going to be on the Saturday night, but that's a secret slot. But the Saturday night event, I'll be doing it.
We won't tell anyone. Honestly, it looks great. I love the graphics, and I love the way you've pulled those montages for the presentation together as well. Listen, you must be up to your eyeballs. So thank you for sharing that with us this morning. I hope you get a lot of support. Again, if I could just ask people just to share the love about promoting that festival, because it's an amazing thing that you pulled together, Matt. And I love the fact that you said you just ship in young people as well. Maybe that's the answer to Cumbria's problems. We just need to ship in some young people to lots of things in Cumbria, and we'll be sorted. So let's all go for shipping in young people. Thank you ever so much. Thanks for inspiring us, Matt, and good luck with it. And fingers crossed, I might even see you there at the weekend.
Thanks, Tom.
All right. We're gonna, in the last few minutes, we've got 6 minutes to go. We're gonna hear a bit from Chris, who's got a few slides just to rattle through about how the network can support you in all your artistic and cultural endeavors in different ways. So Chris, over to you to rattle through a plan for this autumn, and again, just a couple of slides to show people to share. Chris.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, sounds fantastic, Matt, and I'm very much looking forward to getting along there next weekend. And just to mention, tying CACN threads together, Matt is one of our current mentees on the mentoring process. He's being mentored by Lucy Burnett, fantastic poet and very seasoned festival creator, and she's mentoring him from the other side of the world because she's cycling around the world at the moment. Yeah, so you will see before you the business of culture. This is a wee project that we've got going on over the coming months, which is funded, as you can see, by the actually by Cumberland Council's UK SPF Shared Prosperity Fund. You may have run across this. It's ultimately government money, which is part of the quotes levelling up process. How levelled we feel is a matter for debate, but there is money available through that for all sorts of things, including cultural things, and we're very pleased to have got some from Cumberland. So this particular strand is just available for people working or living in Cumberland rather than Westmorland and Furness. But over the next few months, we're going to be providing support, particularly for the kind of the business aspect, because however artistic you are, you have to make a living, or you might be working in or running a small company, and there is always business aspects to that. So we have money to support us in supporting you to do that sort of stuff better. If we go on the next slide, Amy. So we're starting off, we've got 3 confirmed sets of training, starting off with Sita Brand, Your Art is Your Business. Sita delivered this over in Kendal earlier in the year, got fantastic response. It's all about the kind of very basis of turning your creative activity into a viable, sustainable business. We have somebody called Tom Spate, again delivering his training on presenting and pitching, which he did to great acclaim already. How to present yourself to individuals or groups. That's an aspect that everybody has to run across at some point or other, and it's quite scary, but Tom makes it easy and fun. And Helen Palmer, brilliant marketing specialist, who did a couple of sessions about marketing earlier in the year. And again, we got absolutely rave reviews. She'll be delivering stuff again in Cumberland towards the end of October. There will be more to come if we go on to the next slide, Amy. So these are still being pinned down, but we will cover issues such as financial management and business planning and the the governance, that whole business of constituting or keeping in line with government guidelines and requirements and charity commission stuff. The not very exciting, but absolutely essential stuff that goes along with actually running sustainable businesses. And the other aspect, if we go on to the next slide, Amy, we will be able to provide free one-to-one advice sessions. So people living or working in Cumberland can apply to have, if you like, a kind of mini mentoring, an hour session with somebody who really knows what they're talking about in relation to the particular issue or challenge that you're facing in terms of functioning as a business. We'll be opening applications for that next week and with a deadline at the beginning of October, and we will match people up with appropriate mentors there. And if you, is there a final slide? Yes, just to remind you, this has been up for some time. This is available to everybody all across Cumbria, training from Kate Rodenhurst online to half-day sessions about getting real juice out of evaluation. Can seem like a chore, but it ought to be a really constructive process.
Thank you, Chris. Is there a cost involved for any of those courses for people?
There will be a cost for the training. Yes, there will be, as usual with most CACN things, the training days that you'll have to buy tickets for. The one-to-one advice sessions are completely free to the users.
Okay, right, but there's a cost to the sessions coming up in October.
Yeah,
which will be advertised on the website.
Yes, unusual Eventbrite kind of booking stuff. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chris. Thanks for putting all that together, and look forward to finding out about details for the ones in November quite soon as well. Can I just remind you that I make a podcast every month that if you fancy listening to, the most recent one is about Alison Critchlow, who's coming on the call next week to talk about the Round the Island Art Trail. I spent a lovely morning with her on the shores of the Solway and in her beautiful studio. And Amy has very kindly put a link to it there. I need all the listeners I can get to keep earning money from it and keep earning approbation from lots of people. No, only joking. Just listen to it if you want to, but it's quite nice to pop on in the car while they're washing up or whatever. Amy, do you want to mention stuff needed in Carlisle that you were part of or are part of?
Yeah, bear with me, see if I can find the link in amongst the thousands that I've got open in my window.
I'm very well this morning, been working hard. Amy is the engine room behind getting this, keeping Friday morning Zoom meetings going in the way they do. So tell us about this.
Yes, so it's Stephen Dunn from the Cumberland Council, which I'm sure many of you will know, has got an initiative to try and basically brighten up the streets of Carlisle while there's some building work going on. So what they'd like to do is feature images of Cumbrian artwork on the metal hoardings that are going to be up for quite a while, and it's just going to, brighten everything up, highlight the wonderful creativity that's in Carlisle. This went out in the newsletter. It'll go on social media as well. Basically, all you have to do is just send a PDF image of your artwork across to Stephen at the council there. But I'll be putting that on social media as well, so keep an eye out for that.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Amy. It's 10:31. I'm a minute late on the first one back. Next week, Penny Bradshaw is going to come on to talk about what she does so creatively and interestingly through the University of Cumbria. Lots of courses, lots of stuff that she teaches there. And Alison Critchlow talking about the Round the Island Arts Trail as well. Thank you so much this morning to Jen, to Simon, to Matt, and to Chris for telling us about all the great stuff going on in our fair county. I hope you've had a decent hour. The sun is shining here. Have a great weekend, everybody. See you again soon.